But the fact is that this is an operation that gears up every year. We don't have a year-round operation. There will be growing pains these first couple weeks. The training sessions there can be clumsy moments in that. Our first few days of operation particularly, we can seem a bit clumsy to you, okay? And you just got to remember, this is a complex activity, basically, that we're trying to gear up every year. So don't lose faith in us right away. We've done this before. We're good at it. We run very good VitaSites here, but we'll be a little clumsy. Don't make a judgment, okay? Give us till the end of February, and then make a judgment, okay? I wanted to go into tax-wise. I've got an example return in here that I put in for last year, and this relates to what Aaron had just been talking about, and that is the savings promotion. I wanted to kind of take it from a tax perspective. I put in a return, and now I'm having a little trouble finding it. Growing pains, right? But this would have been my point if I would have demonstrated it. And the point is just as well me verbalizing it as showing it to you. This is my point, that a $1,000 IRA contribution, in other words, they took $1,000 of what might be a big refund, like a $4,400 refund. They took $1,000 of it, contributed it to their IRA, and what it had the effect of doing was raising between federal and state their refund amount by $800, which meant that a $1,000 contribution cost them $200. All right, so we can sell savings. We can promote savings by, hey, it's good for you. Saving for the future is a good thing in and of itself, but we can also sell it that if you put $1,000 in, you're going to save. Basically, Uncle Sam and the state of Wisconsin are going to pay $800 of it for you, and so your wealth can grow by $1,000 by making a $200 contribution. That's not available to any of us in this room today, is it? Right? Put $200 down, get $1,000 wealthier. It ain't happening for any of us, but it can happen for our clients right in front of us. So when you're thinking savings promotion, think about that part of it too. It's going to have an effect on the tax return if it's a deductible IRA or a MyRA, which is a new program and a fantastic new program by the IRS. Okay. All right, let's do a tax return. I'm going to go new return. Right there, new return. Okay. And I'm going to, for Portage County, our mid-state site. And by the way, Portage County, Stevens Point, mid-state site, they're all meaning the same thing. So for our site here, I'm going to put in a number. I'm basically going to make up any number I want, first 5 digits, but then I'm going to end it with 6104. That is the last 4 digits of what is called an EFIN, an electronic filing identification number. Each of our sites has a number with the IRS that allows us to electronically file. So Wapaka, Waushara, your last 4 are going to be a little bit different. And so I'm going to put it in again just as a verification. And in my case, I'm going to go to tax forms, but you might find go to interview to be something a little more comfortable. I wish go to interview kind of really was a huge problem solver for us in tax-wise. My judgment is it's not a huge problem solver for us. It's sort of a medium-sized problem solver for us. So I tend to go to tax forms, but you got to remember, 30 years, right, that I've been kind of hanging around the tax business.
And the one thing I would add to that is people who go into the interview first often think that it's going to align with the questions in order on that intake form, and it doesn't. And so you're still going to be kind of going back and forth and searching for information. It's not a perfect sequence. And so really you're better off going into the tax forms. And so Bob's right, he has more experience. But I would really encourage you to try and get comfortable doing this first rather than the interview, because the interview is going to ask you some questions, but you're still going to have to go in and be adding more information to the forms. So why not just start there?
Okay. Now, so I've started the return, but now I want to, particularly if I'm in sort of a training myself, practice, kind of preseason environment, I start the return, but now I'm going to look at the information provided. This return that I'm going to work on is Cheryl Behringer. It's out of the, it's coming out of a packet or a publication called 4491W from IRS, and I guess that it seems to, they may not have reproduced it, is that right? Is that why it's saying 2014?
Yep, so everybody says 2014, but they've updated the answers to reflect 2015 tax law.
Okay. So now, this, I know it's small, and my point is not that you see it, but what I'm doing here is I'm going to an example of the 13614-C, which is our intake form. And really, our tax preparation world, in terms of preparing returns at a VITA site, revolves around the 13614-C. That's the font, that's the source of the information that we use, or kind of the basis of it, or at least the main basis of it. So here we've got Cheryl, her name, she's a U.S. citizen, her address, we've got a phone number for her, we've got a date of birth, her job title, she's not disabled, she's not a full-time student, she's not blind, she can't be claimed as a dependent, she has not been a victim of identity theft, she is divorced, and she has 4 people living with her. Now, one thing I want to point out about this, and any of our experienced volunteers would reiterate what I'm saying, and that is, this is not a list of dependents. This is a list of people who reside with her. Who is a dependent and is not, that's where we come in. That's our ball game. Okay? She's just telling us these folks live with us. Don't think of this as a dependency list. Now, will many of these listed here become dependents on the return? Absolutely they will. But this is in no way definitive. The determination of dependency, that's one of the things that we're here for. All right, that's our job. Okay? And so, but she has 4 people living with her. Okay, kind of just getting an overview of this return. Now, the second page of the intake sheet. And pretty much, gang, even though we want to verify this stuff, we're not taking it entirely at face value. We're pretty much looking for yeses. You know, the yes in the very simplest way, a yes is action item on our part. A no is probably not an action item, even though we want to verify that in fact these are accurate no's, that they are no's that are really appropriate to that situation. You know, we will this room. There's a lot of educated folks in this room. Okay, we got a lot of post-secondary education in this room. Our clients are going to be much less so that way. They're not going to be as comfortable with, number one, tax law, but also just simply a kind of a formal document like this. We're going to need to give them some help with this, filling this intake sheet out. So that's why I'm saying we don't take it at face value entirely. But by and large, if you've got an intake sheet that is filled out appropriately, the no's pretty much mean we're not doing anything with them, and the yes means we are acting on them. In her case, she's got wages, she's got unemployment comp, she contributed to a retirement account, but in her case, gang, it's a 401k. That means it's going to be on the Form W-2, and you'll see that in a minute. And we don't really necessarily need to enter that ourselves, except for just following the W-2. And then also she paid some student loan interest. So, you know, what do I got here? I've got a divorced person, has 4 people living with her. She's U.S. citizen, not claimed as a dependent. She's got wage income. She's got some, She's got some unemployment compensation. She contributed to a 401k, and she's got student loan interest. That's kind of the broad outlines of this taxpayer for us. And I'm just kind of, in my mind, I'm just kind of trying to get the feel of that picture. You know, what is her story? What is her story? And I don't mean that in a cynical way. I mean, what is, you know, her circumstances? Okay. Now, the next page, if I'm going in decent order here, are the Social Security cards. And Aaron had mentioned this for sure, but we need to be very tough about Social Security cards. The best practices in a identity theft world that we live in, and with an IRS that is very much on kind of red alert in terms of identity theft, we've got to be pretty darn rigorous about Social Security cards. Without a Social Security card, we're kind of blocked from going any further. We've got a little wiggle room with picture ID. You know, we can probably find some better alternatives for picture ID. Social Security cards, am I right, Aaron? We're kind of absolute about that. You know, okay. And they've been told to bring them. That doesn't mean that they will, but they've been told. It's not a surprise. Okay. So here are the Social Security cards. Now again, we haven't made judgment about dependency yet. So I think that, and I've got some notes here. And I'll shrink that just a little bit. I'm trying to keep this as big as I can for you. 2 children, lived with her full time. She's been divorced for a number of years. She's paying the household cost. She's entirely supporting her kids. Her mother lives with her. Her mother provides half of her, in fact, Cheryl provides over half of mom's support. Mom gets Social Security and really a minimal amount of interest, and she spends her Social Security on her medical. She doesn't qualify premium tax credit. That's Affordable Care Act. That's Obamacare. Language there. Both her and her dependents had minimum coverage, which basically means she doesn't have to pay an Affordable Care Act penalty. You know, get out of jail free card as far as Affordable Care Act penalty. If there's a refund, she wants it directly deposited. She's repaying a student loan. And Willie Cash moved in with her and lived with her for 9 months. This is a non-related friend who lived with her 9 months. Here's a deposit. Well, I guess this is a check from her bank. And what that's providing, guys, is providing her routing transit number, which is the bank number, and she's providing her account number, which will come in handy for us when we do direct deposit. Really essential for us. She also has a W-2 form, and she's got unemployment compensation. Okay, that's what Cheryl's got going. Okay, so let's go and put a little bit of this into the return. So now I've got the basic outlines of my client, and again, I'm basing that in very large part on the documentation in front of me, with a great deal of emphasis on the intake form, you know, being properly filled out. Okay, so I'm going to put in her first name. And her social's already in there. So I'm going to put in her address, 177 Tudor Avenue. And I'm only going to put in a zip code. And TaxWise is going to be smart enough to match up zip code with city. I'm going to put in her date of birth. And to some degree, I don't want to overstate this, gang, but to some degree, TaxWise is going to be showing us red lines. It's going to be showing us red items. Those are items that TaxWise is saying to us, do not ignore me. I need attention from you. And to some degree, our role as a volunteer tax preparer is to eliminate all those red items. But let's not overstate that. Because TaxWise it's a computer program. It's only reacting to the information that's provided to it. It doesn't have the sensory abilities that we do to have other input, right? So don't ever think of us as simply trying to get rid of the red. We want to try to bring our knowledge and our experience, whatever form that takes in this room, right? And we want to bring that to bear also. But at the very minimum, I've got to get rid of all these red items, or Tom or whoever your site coordinator is not going to e-file that tax return. It is not going anywhere. So I am, looking for red, but I'm also trying to be aware that, hey, I need to be putting some stuff in fresh on my own, because TaxWise it's just a dumb computer program. So there's her date of birth. It's going to calculate her age. She's 43. Her occupation is clerk. Okay, and so I'm going to continue down, and I'm going to put in filing status. Now, here's a bit of tax law stuff for us. We have a publication available to us. I think Pub 4012. Long time tax career, running a tax business up in Wausau. I wish I would have known about Pub 4012 while I was in business, because it's an outstanding tax resource, not just VITA. I mean, any tax preparer in this country would be better off if they had Pub 4012 at their desk. But one of the things about Pub 4012 is there's various tabs, and I know these are very hard to see, but I'm going to go to Filing Status tab. And I'm going to find a decision tree for filing status. I may not be a savvy, highly experienced tax preparer, but one of our essential jobs is getting filing status right. Well, this decision tree is going to be a huge help that way. Were you married on the last day of the year? No. Did your spouse die? No. Do any of the following apply? Spouse died? No. Year of death? No. Paid more than half the cost? Well, in fact, it says, do all of the following apply? Did your spouse die? And we just say no to that. Do both of the following apply? You paid more than half the cost? Yes, because we were told that. And a qualifying person. Now, you need to go to another place, page B3, but we can be assured her children are qualifying persons. Okay? And so, yes, bingo, head of household. All right? That's how we sort that out. We, depending on our various levels of background, education, and experience, we should be able to get a good filing status by kind of doing that, taking that simple step. So I'm going to go back to the return. I'm going to act on that decision tree feedback that I got, and I'm going to click on head of household, and I've got a good head of household. Now, we've got red appeared. Red is saying, I need attention. And so it's if the qualifying person is a child but not your dependent. Well, you know what? I can kind of look at their situation and I know those kids are dependents. Now, you may need to go to another decision tree, which we'll show you. But the fact is that this is not a qualifying person who is not a dependent. Her qualifying persons, or at least one of them, is a dependent. So this red is not appropriate in the sense that I don't need to put anything there, but it's still red. Control F3 will turn it to green. Control F3, and there's probably other ways. Anybody help me?
Control space.
Control space. Okay. Now, dependency. I'm going to go back to 4012. I'm going to go to another tab. I know it's hard to see, but dependency exemption is a tab. And it basically it doesn't have kind of that cool decision tree like we did before, but it has similar kinds of resources for us. Personal exemptions. Now, personal exemption, guys, and forgive me if I'm talking at a level that's where you're not at, but there are two kinds of exemptions. Personal exemption is taxpayer and spouse. And then there's another kind of dependent or exemption, and that's dependent exemptions. This page is talking about personal exemptions. And really, guys, Frank, in this case, her situation, her personal exemption is a slam dunk. You know, she's not a non-resident alien, anything like that, and she's not a dependent. This is a person who's supporting others, not being supported. Okay, so we want to go to the page. I think an effective page for us would be dependency exemptions. And I'm really thinking about all four of those. The two kids, the mother, and the friend. You know, I'm trying to kind of keep all of them in mind as I'm doing this. And, you know, if we had a bunch of time, we'd do them one by one. I'm on the clock here, so I'm going to try to kind of shortcut it a bit. Can you be claimed? In other words, can the taxpayer, and let's see here, can Cheryl be claimed as a dependent? No. So, if no, go to step 2. Was the person married? Now that's the would-be dependence. So her 2 kids, no. Mom, no. And you know, mom's a widow. She's not married anymore. She might identify herself as a married person. You know what I mean? You've worked with, you've had relatives, older people. She might say I'm married, but she's a widow. She's not married. And we think the friend is not married too, I think. So all 3 of those or all 4 of those are no. Go to step 4. Was the person a U.S. citizen? And we kind of stop right there because, yeah, the kids are citizens, mom's a citizen, the friend's a citizen. So we're going to say yes. We're going to go to step 5. Was the person your son or daughter? Well, obviously the kids, yes. Stepchild, eligible foster child. Well, only the kids we say yes to. So we're going to have to split this a little bit now. Let's focus simply on the kids. If yes, go to step 6. Was the person under 19? Both kids under 19? Yes. Go to step 7. Did the person live with you as a member of your household more than half the year? Let's see here. If yes, go to step 7. Answered yes. Let's see. Did the person live with you more than half the year? Yes. Go to step 8. Did the person provide more than half of their own support? That's asking the kid. That's saying, hey, those 2 kids of yours, did they support themselves? And the answer to that is no. Go to step 9. Is the person a qualifying person or qualifying child of anyone else? And that would mean, hey, is dad living with you guys too? You know, are they a qualifying child for both you and dad or for you and grandma? And, you know, the interesting thing here is that technically the answer to that question is that these kids are a qualifying child of someone else. They're a qualifying child of grandma to an extent, except that we'll find out that grandma can be a dependent. And so we really, after all is said and done, we answer that question no. If no, sorry about that. If no, you can claim this person as a dependent. So the kids are dependents. Now, let's go and look at a qualifying relative. And by the way, I'm not going to go through every bit of that for time's sake. What we've got here is mom is a dependent. You're going to see a question that's going to ask if basically, does mom have gross income over, is it $4,000? Is that the number for 15, $4,000? Whatever the number is, it's around there. You're going to say no to that, guys. She's got a bunch of Social Security and a little bit of interest income. Gross income is income subject to tax. The Social Security is not taxable for her at her level of income. So she's only got like $10 of gross income. So bottom line here, kids are qualifying children. Mom is a qualifying relative, and the friend fails. The friend would have needed to have lived with her 12 full months, and he didn't. So he fails. We've got 3 dependents here. Okay. So back to our program. But you can see that those guides are going to be very helpful to you. You know, you don't have to kind of internally know all this stuff. Go to resources and let it help you along. Okay, and social security number, and really guys, I'm just making one up just to save a little bit of time. I'm gonna use a down arrow, and then I'm gonna tab. I'm gonna grab son for artists. I'm gonna use a down arrow, and I'm gonna tab for number of months. The code just kind of pops up. This is a child who lived with her, so this is a number 1. I'm going to use that. DC is dependent credit. That would be if there was child care. We don't know of any child care. Earned income credit is just kind of our first stab at whether or not these kids are earned income credit kids. Now I'm gonna even though we're gonna dwell on this line for a while, earned income credit there is no more important item on a tax return at a VITA site than earned income credit. Two sides of that. Number one, it can create essentially enormous refunds for our clients, which we in VITA are very much in favor of. That is one of the reasons we're here. That's why Aaron is sitting here today, is because Aaron and Cap Services look at this as an anti-poverty program. There is no more essential or significant poverty-fighting tool than earned income credit in our country. And so earned income credit is really important to our clients. It's really important to us because we better get it right. Because it's thousands of dollars. And these are thousands of dollars that our clients cannot afford to pay back. We've got to be careful with that one, guys. If you enter a W-2 with $62 instead of $26, the world is going to keep turning. No worries, really. We want to do it right, but that's an immaterial item. Earned income credit is very material. Okay, so we want to get it right. But right here, what I'd be asking myself is 3 questions. Age, relationship, residence. Are they young enough? Yes. Are they related? Child? You bet. And residence, did they live with her more than 6 months? You bet they did. I'm gonna check that box for artists. Okay? And then CTC is child tax credit, and that checks automatically. That's dependents under the age of 17. The program basically takes care of it for us. Okay. Now, Courtney is next. Okay, and Courtney's a little bit older. She's 16. And just kind of made up a social security number there. I'm going to go to daughter. I'm going to tab number of months, 12. Tab 1. She's a child who lives with her. Earned income credit, you bet. And then the last one is mom. And mom is Monica Jesse. And again, they gave us a better social security number, but I'm just going to shortcut here a bit and just grab a social security number that I'm making up. Obviously, with live return, I don't need to tell you that. We wouldn't be doing that. So I'm going to tab down. I'm going to find parent. I'm going to tab lived with her 12 months. And now here's the code, guys. Now this is not a child who lives with her. This is her mother. So that's number 3, other dependents. Earned income credit, no. You know, the age relationship resident doesn't work for an 81-year-old mother. Fails on a couple of fronts, and child tax credit sort of obviously does not also impact that. Okay. Now, I'm going to say full year resident. I just went down a little bit on that first screen, and I'm going to put in Wisconsin. And what that's going to do is add the Wisconsin return. Now, I'm going to shift gears here a bit, keeping an eye on the clock. If I went through the whole return, particularly if I'm talking about it, could easily take us to noon. And that's way beyond when I'm supposed to be up here. So that's just kind of your initial look at TaxWise online. Remember, it's /training, and you can just kind of use it the way you want to. All right, now I want to pivot to certification testing. The first one is volunteer standards of conduct. It's a very short test that is based on some really brief kind of written material that's available. But frankly, guys, there's a bit of common sense in it. Remember who wrote the test. The Internal Revenue Service. Now, I don't mean that's not a laugh line. I say that because what is the Internal Revenue Service's interest? They want complete, truthful, honest, right, responsibly prepared returns that protect people's identity. That's where they're coming from. So when you see a question, think of what would, WWJD, right? WWIRSD. What would IRS do? Okay? And that's going to help you through standards of conduct. Second test, intake. And I didn't give you the full name, and I don't even know it off the top of my head. But essentially, it's an intake test. That's less intuitive. That's less, you can just sort of figure out the right answer. That's more based on kind of the actual details of the VITA program. But you're going to have material very available to you to help you with that. The third test, one of two, basic or advanced. You can jump in first into basic, or if you feel like it, you can jump into advanced. Okay? What they both do is they make you valid around here as a tax preparer. Volunteer standards of conduct, everybody. Intake, everybody. Basic or advanced at your discretion.
If we do advanced, do we have to pass the basic first?
No.
Excellent question. You do not. It's an or. Basic or advanced. So person can initially jump in at advanced. Testing is a word that creates anxiety. VITA testing, though, is made much more doable by Form 6744. You have this available to you. You've got it in front, I think, sitting at your desk right now, many of you. Form 6744 is going to tell you the precise questions you will be asked. There will be no surprises at all for a volunteer who uses Form 6744 to prepare themselves before they sit down and actually do the testing. The 6744 is going to provide several things. One is it's going to provide the content for volunteer standards of conduct training. It's going to provide the content for the intake training. But then I would say most importantly, Form 6744 is going to show you the precise questions that you will be asked. As an example, a test question for volunteer standards of conduct. Which of the following is a violation of volunteer standards of conduct? And you can read it. That's straightforward enough, but we're going to throw in a little bit of a complexity or a little bit of a wrinkle. You're going to see both test questions and then a few pages down the road, you're going to see retest questions. Intuitively, that would say, oh, my first time through, I'm going to use test questions, and if I fail it, my second attempt will be retest. That would be the sensible way, but it's not the way. When you're taking your testing online like you will consider test and retest to be simply a pool of questions that the computer will pull from. So you need to be prepared to deal with both the test questions and the retest questions at the same initial test that you take. It's just it'll grab here or grab there. It'll either grab the test or the retest, but one of the two is going to come at you. Now, one thing to think about, the test and the retest questions are not really distinct questions in the sense that they're asking about almost exactly the same thing, but just in a different wording. The test might be in a multiple choice format. The retest might be a fill in the blank. But it's the same tax notion that's being asked about. Okay, so 6744, I would consider it the mothership of preparing for certification. And why are we very confident that you are going to pass certification if that's what you want? Part of it is 6744. The other part of it is our experience. A volunteer who wants to be one of our preparers will be one of our preparers. The certification testing, you will do it, and it will work out okay. That this certification testing is by and large something that you need to do independently. It's kind of homework for you. Okay. Now, are we unhelpful? Are we unconcerned? Are we uninvolved? No, but we're not going to have a testing session. This will be something that you're going to do at home, or if you wanted to, you could come to Midstate and I could make a computer happen for you. Here, would be glad to do that. But by and large, it's homework for you.